Hello, my name is Margarita Soto, and I am 56 years old. I am from Puebla, from a small town called Mosoc. I was born there, grew up there, and thought I would die there. To be honest, I never imagined that my life would take so many turns. I have lived in Los Angeles for over 25 years. I arrived alone, with an old suitcase, a sweater my mother knitted for me, and a rosary my grandmother gave me. I was scared, guilty, and heartbroken for leaving my children. But I was also hungry to give my family a better life. And yes, I've worked all this time cleaning houses, all kinds of houses. Big ones, small ones, with pools, without pools, with dogs, with spoiled children, with nice ladies and others not so nice. I've seen things that no one can imagine. Because when you clean other people's houses, you realize that even the richest people have their dirt. They just hide it better. I always liked working, ever since I was a girl. I used to wash clothes in the river with my mom. I sold gelatin desserts in high school. Then I worked in a small restaurant, and that's where I met Francisco. There's Francisco. He was handsome, very quiet but with eyes that seemed to embrace you. We got married young, at 23. We had 2 children, Fabiola and Emiliano. He was a mechanic, and I helped out where I could. We lived very humbly, but we were together. When the situation got bad in Puebla, it was my idea to come here first. I said, I'll go for 2 years, save some money, and come back. But I didn't come back. Because once you enter this country, you start talking. And before you know it, 5, 10, 15 years have gone by. At first, I missed them so much that I cried every night. I slept on an inflatable mattress in a small room that I rented with 2 other women. My whole body ached, but I didn't say anything. I kept telling myself, hang in there, Margarita. This is for your children. I worked in 2 houses a day, sometimes 3. I got up at 5 in the morning. I would get on the bus with my bags, my rags, my brush. I knew the neighborhood like the back of my hand. I sent all my money to Mexico. So my children could study, so Francisco could set up his workshop, so they could have a better home. I kept the bare minimum for myself. Sometimes I didn't even have enough to get my hair cut. But I told myself, it doesn't matter. I'm doing the right thing. After 8 years, I managed to bring Francisco back. It was so nice to see him get off the plane. He was chubbier, grayer, but it was him. He hugged me so tight that I felt like my soul was coming out. I thought that finally we were going to be okay, together. Here. But things didn't turn out the way I imagined. Over time, something broke. He changed. I changed too, I guess. But I'll tell you about that later. I just want you to know that it wasn't easy, that it wasn't fair, that after giving everything, they left me like a piece of trash. And yet, here I am, telling you my story. Because I don't want the same thing to happen to you. Because if you're alone too, if you've been let down, I want you to know that you're not the only one. And even if you feel like you can't go on, believe me, you can. My name is Margarita. I've been a cleaning lady for 25 years, and one day I found myself alone. Look, if I'm honest with you, there was a time when all my days were the same. I would get up before the sun, drink a strong black coffee. I would tie my hair back with an old hair tie and leave with my cleaning supplies and rags. I would walk to the bus stop with my eyes still half asleep and my body aching, but my head full of thoughts. I remember one day very well. It was Monday. It was cloudy. I arrived at a huge house in Beverly Hills, one of those houses that look like they're in a magazine. They had a fountain at the entrance and a garden so perfect that not a single leaf was out of place. I already knew that house and that week. The lady was young, shallow, always wearing workout clothes. But I never saw her. She had a sweet but cold voice, as if she didn't care about anything. I greeted her as usual. "Good morning, ma'am," and went straight to the kitchen. That's where I always started. I washed the dishes, cleaned the countertops, dusted the furniture, and wiped down the refrigerator. Then I went to the bedrooms. And that's where I stood, frozen. The boy's room looked like he was about 5 years old. Everything was blue, with expensive toys, a big TV, stuffed animals everywhere. But everything was spotless, as if no one ever played there. I sat on the edge of the bed to fold a blanket. And out of nowhere, I felt like crying. I don't know why it hit me so hard. Maybe it was because that day marked 13 years since I had last hugged my daughter. Or maybe it was because I saw myself reflected there, invisible, doing everything for others, without anyone noticing. That happened to me sometimes. I would stop for 5 minutes, take a deep breath, and swallow my tears. I couldn't afford to break down. Not there. Not in someone else's house. After cleaning the room, I went to the master bathroom. That bathroom was bigger than my entire apartment. It had a white bathtub, marble floors, and a mirror that looked like something out of a movie. I knelt down to scrub the corners. They always ended up really black. My knees hurt, but I did it with determination. It was as if scrubbing that floor would also scrub away everything that was stuck inside me. I thought about Francisco, about how he used to help me clean the house in Mexico, about how he would touch my shoulder when he saw me sad. But I also thought about what was no longer there, about what was gone. After 4 hours, I was done. They paid me in cash, as always. $120. From that, I had to pay rent and send money to my mom for my medicine. I put the money in an envelope and left. I walked to the nearest park. I sat down on a bench, took out the bread I had prepared that morning, and ate it slowly. It was sandwich bread with refried beans. Nothing special, but it was enough for me. While I ate, I watched people go by. Couples walking, not even running, people walking their dogs. And I felt like I was watching a movie that wasn't mine. Like all of that was happening to other people, not me. And then I started to remember. When I was a little girl, my mom always told me, "You weren't born to rest, Margarita. You were born to help everyone else get ahead." And I believed it. I made it my own. And now I didn't know if that was fair, if anyone would ever think of me. I finished the bread. I wiped my hands with a napkin. I dried my eyes without anyone seeing me. And I went to another house. That was my routine, one after another. Nice houses and different owners, long silences. I was the woman who arrived when everyone left. The one who cleaned up what no one wanted to see. The one who left without making a sound. And there, in the midst of that silence, I thought about my life. About what I had left behind. About how sometimes the body goes on, but the soul is already tired. But I had no choice but to go on. I had to work. Because even though I felt alone, I still had dreams. I met Francisco when I was 18. He was already working as an assistant in a mechanic's workshop a few blocks from my parents' house. He was serious. He didn't talk much, but he had a way of looking at you as if he really saw you, not just with his eyes. One afternoon, my dad sent me to drop off a spare part. I was in a bad mood because I didn't want to go out. But when I got there, Francisco smiled at me with that good boy look he always had, and my anger melted away. From then on, we started seeing each other more often. He was never one for sweet words, and he wasn't very thoughtful. But he was a hard worker. He was good at his job. He was a good son, and that was enough for me. We got married 5 years later. It was a small wedding in my mother-in-law's backyard. We ate mole, there was rice, and the neighbors set up a dance floor with 2 old speakers. We had almost nothing, but we had each other. We lived with my mom at first. Then we rented a small room. I sold tamales in the mornings, and in the afternoons I helped out in a soup kitchen. He worked in the workshop from 8 in the morning until nightfall. It was hard, but I was happy. We laughed at silly things. We fell asleep in each other's arms. Sometimes we dreamed of having our own little store or a used car or going to see the ocean. We had Fabiola a year later. Then Emiliano came along. When they were born, everything changed. It wasn't just the 2 of us anymore. Now there were 4 of us, and the responsibility was heavier. Sometimes Francisco would come home from work upset and wouldn't talk. I would serve him dinner, and he would eat in silence. But I understood. It wasn't easy being a man in Mexico without money or opportunities. He did what he could. I didn't complain either. I liked taking care of them. I liked cooking for them, washing their clothes, watching the children grow up. But there were also days when I locked myself in the bathroom just to cry for a while. The exhaustion, the stress, the lack of money, it all came together. One day, a cousin of mine who lived in Los Angeles called me. She told me she was making good money cleaning houses. She worked 3 times a week and earned what we made in a month. That's when the idea got into my head. I suggested to Francisco that I go first. I would save up money and then bring it back. He didn't want me to at first. He said, "What about the kids?" I replied, "My mom will take care of them for a while." It was a long fight, but in the end, he agreed. I said goodbye to my children with a broken heart. Emiliano was 3 years old. Fabiola was 5. They hugged me so tight that I felt like I would never forget them. Francisco accompanied me to the bus. He didn't say much, just, "Take care of yourself, Maggie." I replied, "We'll see each other soon, you'll see." And that's how it all started. At first, I wrote him letters every week. I told him everything. The houses where I worked, what I ate, what I dreamed about. Sometimes I would write to him because I missed his voice. He wrote to me too, but less often. He said he wasn't good at it. But when I got a letter from him, I would read it over and over again. After 5 years, I managed to bring him here. It was a difficult process. With the help of a woman who helped me with the paperwork, when he finally arrived, I felt that it had all been worth it. We lived together in a small apartment. We shared a bed, food, bills. We took turns cleaning. He worked with a cousin in construction. I continued cleaning houses. It wasn't perfect, but at least we were together again. On the weekends we went to the park. We talked about bringing the children, but it was complicated. They were already grown up. Fabiola didn't want to come. She said her life was in Mexico. Emiliano said someday. That hurt us, but we also understood. Little by little, Francisco started to change. He no longer asked me how my day had been. He no longer hugged me in bed. He no longer wanted to go out on Sundays. I thought it was work, that he was stressed, that he needed his space. I never imagined what was coming. One night we were having beans and cheese for dinner. I said, "Is something wrong, Francisco? You seem distant." And he just looked down and said, "I don't know, Margarita. I don't feel happy anymore." I was frozen. I asked him, "Are you not happy with me?" He didn't answer. From then on, something broke. He slept on the other side of the bed. He went out more. He came home late. I did everything to please him. I cooked his favorite dishes, washed his clothes with his fabric softener, left him notes in his backpack. But he acted like nothing was wrong. And one day, I saw him laughing on his cell phone. He was laughing to himself. His eyes were shining. Like before, but not with me. My heart knew before my head did. And yes, he did have someone else. The first time I felt that something was wrong was on a Sunday afternoon. I was cleaning the stove because even though it was Sunday, I never really rested. I like to leave the kitchen clean to start the week off right. Francisco was on the couch with his cell phone in his hand. He was laughing quietly, as if he didn't want me to hear him. I asked him, "What are you laughing at?" And he, without looking up, replied that it was a video someone had sent him. I didn't ask any more questions. But I felt, I don't know, like a little pinch in my chest. Then the messages started late at night. He would go into the bathroom with his phone. He changed the password. He left his phone face down. And I tried not to think the worst. I told myself, "No, Margarita, don't be toxic. Trust him." But inside, I was falling apart. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I waited until he fell asleep. I quietly approached his side of the bed and picked up his phone. The screen was on. My hands were shaking. They were sweating. And then I saw it. A conversation with someone named Vane. Messages like, "I want to see you again. I dreamed about you last night. I miss you. My love is blind." I turned on the light. I couldn't believe what I was reading. It was like someone had thrown a bucket of cold water on me. I woke Francisco up. I asked him, "Who is that woman?" He was speechless. Then he sat up and looked at me with that "you caught me" look. "Don't cry, don't panic." I just said, "Give it to me, Francisco." "Do you have another one?" And he said, "Yes." Just like that, as if he were telling me he had run out of milk. I got up, I went to the bathroom, I locked myself in, and then I cried, like never before in my life. I sat on the floor, hugging my knees, feeling like a fool, an old woman, a nuisance, a woman who gave everything and it wasn't enough. The next day, he left. He packed some shirts, his boots, his cell phone charger. He didn't give me any explanations. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He just said, "Don't hate me, Margarita. This isn't working anymore." And he left. I was left alone in that apartment where every corner reminded me of him. The couch where he slept, the drawer where he kept his tools, his coffee cup. Everything felt empty. I kept cooking out of habit. I would set 2 plates on the table and then realize that I was the only one who was going to eat. I would get into bed and turn over, hoping to feel his back, but there was no one there. The worst part wasn't that he left. The worst part was how he left me. After so many years, after so many sacrifices, after I had crossed half the world for him. He didn't leave me for a better woman. He left me for a younger woman, a happier woman. A woman with time to go out, to drink, to laugh. And me. I was tired. I was the one who worked, who paid the rent, who sent money to Mexico, who cooked, who took care of everything. And even so, they replaced me. There is a very ugly pain that cannot be explained in words. It is not the pain of a cut or an illness. It's a pain that gets into your chest, tightens your throat, keeps you awake. It makes you feel invisible. Days went by, and I didn't hear from him. Not a call, not a message, nothing. And I wondered, did he really forget me so easily? Did all those years really mean nothing? I looked at myself in the mirror and didn't recognize myself. My face was swollen. I had dark circles under my eyes. My hair was messy and unkempt. I had a sad look in my eyes. I felt ugly, empty, discarded. Sometimes I thought it was my fault, that I neglected him because I worked so hard, that I didn't take care of myself, that I didn't say nice things to him, that I didn't. But then I remembered. I did everything I could, everything. And even so, he left. My children noticed. Fabio called me and said, "Mom, are you okay?" I lied to her. I said yes. But she knew. Daughters know. A few days later, Emiliano sent me money. Without saying anything, he just deposited it. I cried, not because of the money, but because, for the first time, I felt that someone was thinking about me. I took refuge in my work. I started taking on more houses. I cleaned as if scrubbing the floors could remove all the anger I felt inside. The women I worked for would see me and say, "Everything okay, Margarita?" And I would smile and say, "Yes, ma'am. Everything's fine." But inside, I was dying. I didn't know the body could cry so much. Really? I thought that your tears would run out after a while, but no. I cried for weeks on end. I cried in the shower. I cried when I washed the dishes. I cried on the bus, turning my face to the window so no one would see me. At first, I felt kind of numb, as if I didn't really understand what was happening. I would wake up and think, where is Francisco? And then I would remember. He was gone. He left. Just like that. And it's not just that he left. He erased me, as if I had never existed in his life. As if 20-odd years together had been for nothing. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want them to tell me, cheer up, or God knows why he does things like that. I didn't want advice. All I wanted was for someone to tell me, "Yes, Margarita, they broke your heart. It hurts, and it's okay for it to hurt." The first few days I hardly ate anything. I made myself a cup of coffee and drank it without tasting it. Sometimes I ate panduro. I wasn't hungry. I felt a hole in my stomach that food couldn't fill. I went to work like a robot. I would shower, comb my hair as best I could, put on my usual pants, and leave with my head down. I cleaned harder than before. I scrubbed the bathroom as if I were trying to scrub away the stains. I scrubbed the floors with rage. I felt that if I stopped moving, I would fall apart. The nights were the worst. The silence, the empty bed. No messages on my phone. I texted him once. I wrote, "I just wanted to know if you're okay." He left me on red. That's when I realized there was no going back. I was angry. I was ashamed. I felt a sadness that went deep into my bones. I wondered what I had done wrong, where I had failed. Why wasn't it enough? And I blamed myself. Because that's how we were taught. If a man leaves, it's because the woman neglected him. Because you didn't pay attention to him anymore. Because you gained weight. Because you got old. But no, that wasn't it. It was because he got tired. Because he was offered something new. Something fresh. Something without so many years behind it. And he didn't think about everything we went through together. He didn't think about the letters, the sacrifices, the years I waited for him. And that's what hurt the most. That he didn't see me. Me, Margarita, the one who left her country, her home, her children, everything for him. The one who washed his clothes, took care of his back, cooked his favorite rice. It wasn't enough, and I had to learn to live with that. I took refuge in the church. I'm not the most devout, but I felt that at least there I could cry without being judged. I would sit in the back row, cover my face, and talk to God. I would say, Lord, I don't understand why this happened to me. I don't understand what I did wrong. But if you allowed it, it's for a reason. Give me strength. Because I can't do this alone. And don't think that strength came overnight. There were nights when I thought nothing was worth it, that my life was over and that I had nothing left. My children talked to me often. Fabiola Medicia, Mom, come to Mexico. What are you doing there all alone? And sometimes I thought about it. But then I said, what would I do there? Go back with nothing, without Francisco, without the life I dreamed of? Something inside me told me I had to stay, that not everything was lost. But before getting up, I drowned myself. And I'm not ashamed to say it. Because there are many women who go through the same thing and feel like they're crazy. And no, we're not crazy. We're hurting. One day, I remember staying in bed all Sunday. I didn't shower. I didn't eat. I just lay there staring at the ceiling, thinking, remembering, wondering if it would ever stop hurting. And there, in that silence, I said to myself, Margarita, if you don't get up, no one is going to do it for you. It wasn't a pretty speech. It wasn't a movie quote. It was a small, dry, simple thought. But it was all I had. And that helped me open my eyes. After all that, there was silence. But not a nice silence. It was one of those heavy silences that hurts your ears. I had no one to talk to. Because it's one thing to have people around you, and it's another thing to feel accompanied. And I felt alone. Even though I had neighbors, even though I worked in people's homes. Zola, inside. And the worst thing was that I started to get sick. First, my back hurt, then my neck. Then it was everywhere, my head, my legs, my stomach. I went to the doctor and they told me it was accumulated stress. That I needed to rest. That I needed to take care of my mental health. I laughed. Rest. How do you do that when you have bills to pay? When your family depends on you? So I didn't listen. I kept working. But it wasn't the same anymore. I cleaned more space. It hurt to bend over. I got dizzy on public transportation. Once I almost fainted in a house. I sat down on the kitchen floor and curled up. I asked God not to let me have a heart attack right there. I started to isolate myself. I didn't go to the park anymore. I didn't see my neighbors anymore. They didn't turn on the TV anymore. I spent my time lying down when I wasn't working. And I felt useless, as if I was no longer of any use. As if the world was telling me, you've given what you had to give. Now get out of the way. And that's when I started thinking about more serious things. I thought that if I died one day, no one would notice. That they would find me weeks later, alone in my bed. And it hurt. It hurt to feel so forgotten. But one day, one of those gray days of pure silence, something changed. I was cleaning the house of an elderly woman. She was very kind, actually. She always offered me coffee and asked me about my day. That day, while I was washing the dishes. She sat down at the kitchen counter and said, "Margarita, I can tell you something." I said yes. And she began to tell me that her husband had left her when she was 54, after 30 years together, for a younger woman, and that she thought she was going to die. But she didn't die. She got up. She studied. She became a geriatric nurse, and now she was helping elderly people. I was silent. I felt a lump in my throat, because her story was my story. And she said to me, "You can start over too. Doesn't matter how old you are." That night I couldn't sleep. I lay there thinking about it, thinking if I still had time, if I could still do something for myself. Days went by, and one day I went to a community center near the laundromat. I saw a sign that said, "Free classes for seniors in basic nursing." I approached with trepidation. I asked. They told me I could sign up. All I needed was ID and proof of address, and that's where I started, afraid, insecure. But I started. The first few classes I felt lost. The books were difficult for me. My head hurt from reading so much. But every time I thought about giving up, I remembered the woman. And I told myself, if she could do it, so could I. I learned how to take blood pressure, how to care for the elderly, how to give medication. And I began to feel something I hadn't felt in years. Pride. Pride in myself. I looked in the mirror and no longer saw the abandoned woman. I saw someone who, despite everything, was still standing. Someone who had fallen to the bottom but was climbing back up. After a few months, I got an internship at a nursing home. There I realized that many of them felt the same way I did. Alone. Abandoned. With hearts broken into pieces, and I became friends with a lady named Doña Rita. She told me her stories. She held my hand. She said, "Thank you for treating me nicely, daughter." And those words healed me. They helped me more than any pill, because I felt useful. I felt that, finally, I was good for something more than cleaning, that I could give love, care, and companionship. One day, leaving the nursing home, I sat down on a bench and watched the afternoon go by. It had been a long time since I had stopped to look at the sky. I cried, but not out of sadness. I cried with relief. I hugged myself, and I said to myself, "Margarita, you did it. Not the way you thought you would, but here you are, alive, whole, stronger." I don't know exactly when I felt alive again. It wasn't sudden. It wasn't like I woke up one day and said, "The pain is gone." It was little by little, like when dawn breaks slowly and quietly. After finishing classes, I started working full-time at the nursing home. They didn't pay much, but it was enough for me. And it wasn't just for the money, it was for how it made me feel. I would get up early, put on my white uniform, do my hair, and look at myself in the mirror with a different face. I was no longer the tired Daisy who walked with her head down. Now I had a purpose. At the nursing home, the elderly residents began to love me. They doted on me, calling me my girl, my angel, the good Mexican girl. And that filled my soul. Because for many years, no one had said nice things to me. And even though he wasn't a man who said them, it still hurt good. I learned to listen, to wait patiently, to have compassion without carrying everything. Because before, I helped, yes, but I carried the burden. I felt it was my duty, that if I didn't do it, no one would. Now I helped from a different place, from a healthier place. I started sleeping better. I ate at regular times. The pain in my body subsided, and most importantly, I stopped waiting for Francisco to come back. Yes, there were still days when I remembered him, when I heard a song or when I passed by a place where we used to walk together. But it didn't hurt the same anymore. It didn't tear me apart inside. It was a memory, nothing more. One day, Emiliano called me. He said, "Mom, I want you to come visit us." And for the first time, I said yes. A few months later, I went to Puebla. After so many years, after so much fear. And when I saw my children, I forgot everything. Fabio already had his children. Emiliano, too. They hugged me as if I hadn't seen them in 15 years. And I cried like a little girl. I told them everything. Without shame, I told them about Francisco. How he left me, how I felt. And they listened to me. They didn't judge me. They hugged me. Nija said something to me that I will never forget. "Mom, I always knew you were strong, but I didn't know how much." And then I understood something, that sometimes you have to break down in order to rebuild yourself. I stayed in Mexico for a month. I went to see my mom at the cemetery. I brought her flowers. I sat by her grave and told her everything, as if she could hear me. I told her, "Mom, the worst is over. I've picked myself up." And then I went back to Los Angeles, with more peace in my heart. My life isn't perfect. I'm still working. I still live in the same apartment. I still cook for myself. But now I do it with peace. I no longer feel incomplete. I no longer feel old or useless. Now I know that I can start over as many times as necessary. And if I am without you, I even feel like falling in love again. Not to fill a void. Not for someone to rescue me, but to share. To walk hand in hand without carrying anyone else's burden. But if it doesn't happen, I won't break. Because for the first time in many years, I have myself. And that, believe me, is worth more than any promise. Well, time has passed. Quite a lot of time. Since everything I told you. Sometimes I find it hard to believe everything I've been through. Why do we think that certain things only happen to other people? Right? To our neighbors, our friends, on television. But no. Life doesn't ask you if you're ready. It just throws you in. And me, Margarita, who came to this country to work, to break my back, to send money home, to endure humiliation, exhaustion, contempt, who waited years to bring my husband here. I ended up alone, but not empty. Because even though at the time I felt like my world was falling apart, I also understood that there was still something in me that hadn't been broken. My strength. Look, I'm not one for pretty words or speeches. But if I can tell you one thing from the bottom of my heart, it's that a woman can get back up again, even if she's 40, 50, or 60 years old. Even if she's been abandoned, betrayed, cast aside. Even if she feels old, worn out, forgotten. A woman can still do it. And it's not easy, huh? Don't think it happens in a month. Or that you can just say, "I'm over it, everything's fine now." Number, you have to cry it out, cry it out. You have to feel the pain, say it, let it out. Because if you keep it all inside, it rots you from the inside out, and it keeps you from moving forward. I kept it all inside for a long time. Out of shame, out of fear, so as not to worry my children. But when I finally let go, when I accepted that I felt broken, that's when my healing began. Today, when I see women going through the same thing, my heart breaks, because I know how it feels. that emptiness, that silence at home, that bed that seems bigger without him, that question that keeps you awake at night. Why me? And I swear I want to hug them all, to tell them, yes, it hurt. Yes, they left you. Yes, you felt worthless. But it's not true. You are worth it. Even if he didn't see it, you are worth it. Look, I don't expect anything from anyone anymore. I don't say that with sadness. I say it with peace. I no longer need to be loved to feel loved. I no longer need company to feel accompanied. Now I have myself. And I believe that's no small thing. I learned to go to the park alone and enjoy myself, to sit down in a cafe with my notebook and write down my thoughts, to walk without rushing, to breathe without feeling guilty. I even started saving a little money to go dancing on Saturdays at those places where they play cumbia and salsa. I'm not going to flirt or anything. I'm going to move my body, to acknowledge that I'm still alive. And if someday someone comes along who loves me, respects me, doesn't want to change me, well, that's great. If not, that's fine too. Because I've understood that happiness doesn't come from outside. It comes from within, from yourself. And if you're reading this and you feel like your world has fallen apart, I want to tell you something, woman to woman. You're not alone. Maybe you're at that point where everything hurts, where nothing makes sense, where it's hard to even get out of bed. I understand. I've been there too. But I promise you, it will pass. One day you'll wake up and the pain won't be the same. And then another day and another. And when you least expect it, you'll find yourself smiling without even realizing it. Not because you forgot, but because you healed. And that's the most beautiful thing there is. Healing, coming back to yourself, embracing yourself again, trusting life again. I'm Margarita Soto. I cleaned houses for 25 years. I was left, I broke down, I rebuilt myself. And here I am, alive, stronger, calmer. If you've been through something like this, I want you to tell me about it. Leave me a comment. Tell me where you're watching from. And if you ever felt like you couldn't do it, but you did. Or if you're still in the process, I'm here reading. And if you know a woman who needs to hear this, send it to her. We don't know who we can help with just one story. And subscribe. Because we're still here sharing real stories. Stories like yours, like mine. Stories of people who have had a hard time but haven't given up. Thank you for listening, really.